Hey, it's Chris Allingham, the Virtual Weber Gas Grill. In this video, I'm going to show you how to change the regulator and hose assembly on a Weber Genesis 1000 propane gas grill. To be more specific, this is a Genesis 1000 LX gas grill. It was manufactured in 1997, and we know that because of the EI date code stamped on this sticker on the end of the control panel. This is the regulator we're replacing today. Weber called this a Type 2 quick disconnect. A lot of people just call it a quick connect. Has not been used in many, many years. And since we're going to be refurbishing this grill to its former glory, we're going to get rid of this 23-year-old regulator and replace it with a brand new one. To start, I'll remove the knobs. I admit I've cheated and given that a head start so it doesn't look as hard as it really is in real life. I'm going to pull up on the control panel, lift up, and pull it right off. Now let's orient ourselves for a second. This is the hose connection that we'll be removing. This is the manifold that the hose connection screws into. This is one of the gas valves that controls the burner. And this is the igniter. This is what sits underneath the button that you push to spark the ignition. So this is the part we're going to be unscrewing. I'm going to take a pair of garden shears and we're going to cut off the hose. It's going to make it easier to get this out of the grill. There's no going back now. Now I'm going to take a crescent wrench and we're just going to break the connection. It's been sitting here for 23 years. It doesn't want to move, but it will move. Now it's simply a matter of just loosening this connection, moving the igniter wires out of the way. It's getting easier. And now we're going to remove it by hand. And here it is, out of the grill, out of the manifold. Here's the hole in the manifold. There's some pipe dope around the opening, so I'm going to take a brass bristle brush and clean that off quickly, just to make things nice and neat. This is an optional step. I don't know that it matters, but it makes for a nice clean installation moving forward. So let's move on to the regulator. This is the regulator I purchased at Amazon.com. I'm not going to tell you what brand and I'm not going to tell you what price because those things are both highly variable over time. There's lots of different suppliers. They seem to come and go. And there's lots of different price points. The low is about $12. The high is about $25. They all seem to be very similar in the way they look. My guess is they're all made at the same factory. The key thing is for you to look at the specs on the regulator and make sure that it lists your grill model in the specifications. That's the key thing. Now, that's not an absolute rock solid guarantee. It's possible that the seller has made an error in the product description, but they have every interest in making sure you get the right regulator because they don't want to take back returns. So I would look carefully at the product description and the specs and make sure that your grill is listed. My grill is a Genesis 1000 LX, and this spec says that this regulator works on the Genesis 1000, so that's good enough for me. You can buy a brand new regulator from Weber, an official regulator, but you know what? They look an awful lot like the regulator you see here. Weber sells it for $22.99 at the time I'm recording this video, so you can do that if you want, or you can just find one on Amazon that says it fits your grill. This is the fitting on the end of the hose. It's called a 1/8 inch NTP fitting. NTP stands for National Pipe Thread. The inside diameter of the fitting is approximately 1/8 of an inch. To my eye, it appears a little bit larger, but never mind that. It is called, and it is a 1/8 inch NTP fitting. It's going to screw right into the manifold where we took out the old hose. You can also see here the big black nut that connects the regulator to the propane tank. That's called an ACME nut, and that is the modern fitting that we use to connect regulators to propane tanks. Now you will recall that I cleaned some pipe dope off that connection on the manifold. We are going to use pipe dope to reconnect this new gas hose to the manifold. This product is from a company called RECTORSEAL. It's called RECTORSEAL 5. I've done the research and it's an appropriate pipe dope for use with a propane connection. No matter what you use, make sure that you check the manufacturer's specs to ensure that the pipe dope you're using is appropriate for propane. They'll also refer to it as LP or LPG. I'm going to apply a good amount of pipe dope to the end of the fitting, making sure that I don't get it on the inside of the fitting. And now it's a matter of just screwing in that fitting by hand until it's hand tight. Then I'm going to wipe off the excess pipe dope. And finally, tighten up the fitting with a small crescent wrench. And this new regulator is now connected to this Genesis 1000 LX grill. So now I'm going to do a safety check. It's always important to do this when you have made a new propane connection on a gas grill. I'm going to hook up the regulator to the tank. I'm going to turn the gas on at the tank valve, which pressurizes the manifold. And then I've got a bottle of soapy water. This is dishwashing liquid with a little bit of water. And I'm going to squirt that on the pressurized connection. And if there's any leak, I should see some bubbles. And I don't see any bubbles. I'm looking at the top of the connection and also the bottom of the connection. And I don't see any bubbles at all. So I think my connection is good to go. Now it's just a matter of reinstalling the control panel. And putting those burner control knobs back in place. And now I want to fire up this grill and see if it works. We'll do a little burn test. And I can peek down between the grate and I can see that I've got a good blue flame going down there on the third burner and on the second burner and on the first burner. And you can see here, I'm getting good temperature on the thermometer. So I've got a successful replacement of the regulator and hose assembly on this Genesis 1000 LX propane grill. Well, that's a pretty satisfying project, and I think it's within the capability of most everyone to replace a regulator like that. Let me go in the house, change out of my work t-shirt, put on something clean, and I'll come back and wrap up this how-to video. Welcome back. It's actually been a couple of days since I installed that regulator, but I wanted to get back with you and answer some questions that maybe you had as you watched me do that project. First question is, was this regulator bad? Was it defective? And if it wasn't, why did you replace it? This regulator was not bad. It was being used with the grill at the time I acquired it. But it has a connection on it that is no longer in use anymore. This is a connection called, Weber called it a Type 2 quick disconnect. People today call it a quick connect. It requires a special connection on the tank that receives this end. It plugs in like that and unplugs. Weber started using it in the mid-1990s. It was an improvement over the old connector prior to this, but it fell out of favor. And today we use something called a QCC1 connector on the tank. It's those wide threads that you see around the outside of the tank valve. And instead of having this on the regulator, you have that big black ACME nut that screws on and off by hand. So in order to continue to use this connection on a modern day tank, you have to do something. One of the things you can do is you can remove this connector from the regulator and replace it with an adapter that has the ACME nut on it. You'll recall that the connection on the regulator that I put in that grill was called a 1/8 inch NPT connector. This is a 1/4 inch NPT connector, and you can buy this adapter at Amazon.com. Doesn't cost very much money, and you put pipe dope on those threads and you screw it into the back of the regulator, and now you've adapted this regulator to a modern day tank. You are still left, however, with a 23 or 25-year-old regulator and a 23 or 25-year-old hose, which is stiff and maybe getting brittle, who knows. So if you want to keep using an old regulator like this on a modern day tank, you can replace this fitting. Another possibility, a little bit less convenient, is to buy an adapter that accepts this into one end, and the other end it has a threaded connection that goes into the internal threads on the inside of a modern day propane tank valve. The downside to that is that every time you go to exchange that tank or refill that tank, you have to take out the adapter, make sure you don't lose it, or don't trade it away with the tank, get the tank refilled or exchanged, and then put the adapter back in and plug this back into it. Personally, my advice is that if you encounter one of these on an old grill, just take it off like I did and replace it with a new regulator. New regulator doesn't cost that much. If you're in the business of flipping grills and you're spending a lot of money on regulators, it might make more sense for you to simply replace this connector and use an old regulator if it's still in good shape. But that's a business decision that someone's making for a flipping business. If you're a backyarder and you've only got one of these vintage grills that you're refurbishing, I think it makes more sense to get rid of this and switch to a modern regulator. Now, another question you may have has to do with the 90-degree elbow that was on the regulator I took off the old grill. What's that about? Well, that elbow allows the gas hose to drop straight down below the grill to the tank. You'll notice in these photos that my regulator shoots straight off the manifold and it loops out and then down to the tank. It's a little more visible than the way that Weber did it originally. If you want to install an elbow, you can. They don't cost very much. They're available at Amazon. They have a 1/8 inch NTP male thread on one end that you apply pipe dope to and you screw it into the manifold. The other end of it is a 1/8 inch NTP female connection. You apply pipe dope to the end of the regulator connection like I did, and you screw that into the other end of the elbow, and now you've got yourself a regulator connected to a 90-degree elbow, and that hose will drop straight down below the grill to the tank. Now you might also be wondering, what about using tape to make the connection between the regulator and the manifold instead of using pipe dope? There's some mixed opinions about this. The manufacturer of the regulator, I believe on the Amazon listing, indicated that you could use a gas appropriate tape to screw that regulator into the manifold. But we have members on the Virtual Weber Bulletin board who are very emphatic about the fact that when you get down to these smaller 1/8 inch connectors, that you're really better off using pipe dope. And so given that fact and the fact that also Weber used pipe dope originally, I'm going to use pipe dope when I replace a regulator hose like I did. I'm not going to mess with tape. I'm going to use a proper pipe dope that says on the manufacturer specs that it's appropriate for propane or liquefied petroleum gas, or LP or LPG. Now, the other thing I want to mention is there's a possibility that when you go to take the regulator off an old Genesis gas grill, you might not find that 1/8 inch NTP connection that we had on this grill. You might find something that looks more like this. This is actually two pieces, and this is the connection on the regulator. You can see the other end of it. And sometimes you'll find grills that have the 1/8 inch connector here screwed into the manifold, and then it has this other wider connection on this end, and then you'll see the regulator screwed on like this. This is an adapter. It's called a half union. This is the 1/8 inch NTP connection that you saw on the old grill and on the regulator I put in. And this is called a 3/8 inch flare connection. This end screws into the manifold like we did with the other regulator, and then this end screws on to a manifold that has a 3/8 inch connection in it. This is a female connection, this is a male connection. Now, why this? And I don't know why you'd find this on an old grill, but sometimes you do. One thought about it is that sometimes you can find an awful lot of these kind of regulators online for sale, more so than you can find the 1/8 inch NTP that we used. This is the kind of regulator that Weber uses today on its newer gas grills, this 3/8 inch female connection. So if you find this kind of regulator that meets the specs for your grill in terms of its gas output and pressure, you can connect it to the grill that I was showing you by using this adapter. The trick though, and be very clear about this, is that on the 1/8 inch NTP end, you do need to put pipe dope on this end. and screw that into the manifold. But no pipe dope on this end. On this end where you see this wide flat area right here, that is a metal on metal connection. That flat surface mates against the flat surface inside this connector, and you screw it together by hand, if I can get it going. And then you have to use 2 opposing wrenches and make this mechanically tight in order to seal these 2 together. Once again, pipe dope on the 1/8 inch NTP end that goes into the manifold. No pipe dope on this end. No pipe tape on this end. Simply a mechanical connection between the 3/8 inch flare and the 3/8 inch connector on the manifold. Now, when you find this kind of connection on an old Weber gas grill, you can simply leave this piece in the grill, in the manifold, unscrew this part, throw this whole bit away, and then buy a new 3/8 inch manifold and screw it onto the connector. You don't have to worry about removing this piece, and you don't have to worry about the pipe dope. You just screw this right on to the flare fitting. And finally, I want to apologize for a couple of errors in terminology that I made in this video. A couple of places where I said manifold when I meant regulator. A couple of places when I was talking about national pipe thread that I said NTP instead of NPT. Sorry about that. Well, I think that about wraps up this video. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you very much. Please like and subscribe to my videos. It helps other people find them. Until next time, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.